Well, we are getting some news this morning about Manhattan real estate and the trends we're seeing in sales. So one real estate company's numbers show that the median sales prices dropped below the $1 million threshold for the first time in 3 years. So what does that mean for you? Here to break it all down with me is Stephen James. He's the CEO of the New York City Douglas Elliman offices. So listen, firstly,
Yes.
Great to hear you. I'm sure
you.
So many people have questions for you.
They do. I think the drop below $1 million probably shocked a lot of people. Whoa, is the thing crashing? And what's going to happen to my value? And the truth of the matter is not much is really going to happen other than the fact that it did drop. The fact that it dropped is actually a good thing. Okay. It means that we are closer to, if you will, a bottoming out and heading back up, because as it goes down, it goes back up.
So as we look in Manhattan, is it a buyer's or a seller's market now that this has shifted?
It depends on what you're looking for. If you're at the upper end of the market, absolutely a buyer's market. And if you're at the entry-level studios or one-bedrooms, probably there are great opportunities for a buyer and you have a greater advantage there, but not across the board because of the entry-level pool.
So what is it that's driving the market?
Inventory.
Okay.
For the last decade, inventory has driven this market substantially. When you have a small group of properties and a huge pool of buyers, that means they're going to shove the price up. And what's happened certainly in 2018 was a change in that regard. The inventory started rising, and that actually kind of scared people, and it gave them more opportunities, but it meant that the seller was not in the driver's seat. I think for a decade, the seller has been in the driver's seat. Today, the seller is not in the driver's seat. And once the seller finally gets the message that you can't rely on the old pricing, or you can't rely on that fantasy of what you thought you wanted to get, you have to look at the data and you have to look at what the reality is out there. And if you're willing to look at that and accept that, then the buyer is going to meet you and do a deal with you. If not, you're going to be left in the dust.
So would you say that this is considered then a weaker market than a year ago, or it's just a shifting market? Because you've heard some people say, like, now it's a weaker market for us.
Well, I mean, it's all in perspective. Probably if you're a consumer, it's, you know, if you're a seller, you probably say it's a weaker market. If you're a buyer, you say, well, you know, I have opportunity, so maybe that's stronger for me. I think it's a little bit of both. You know, again, it depends on what you're looking for.
It seems like, despite the fact that there is so much here, that inventory can be scarce when you have that one little budget and you're looking for, what neighborhood should you be going to?
Well, I mean, I still think no matter where you are, there are always good values, and you have to, it takes longer to find them. And if you're working with a professional, you're going to get there faster. But I still think there are some opportunities in Manhattan, certainly, you know, far Upper West Side, even far Lower East Side. I think there are values, but Brooklyn's still a very good value. And honestly, let's don't forget Queens. Queens, there is incredible value and incredible potential out there, especially with Amazon possibly taking over Long Island City. So
let's go ahead and talk about northern Manhattan. Would you say co-ops or condos?
I would say probably co-ops. I think there's a bigger product in the northern part of Manhattan in co-ops. You know, you have to remember in New York City that 65 to 70% of the product, the real estate, is made up of the cooperative sales market. And most people think it's condominiums, but it's not.
So I'm glad that you started to say that. What is the difference for people that aren't quite sure what the difference is between co-ops and condos?
Condo is like buying a house. It's real property. You have a stock, you have a title and all that. In a cooperative, you have a stock certificate, you're part of a big corporation, and the biggest important thing about that is that the board of directors, elected by the shareholders, rule the building. They decide whether you can sell or buy, and they decide, in some sense, at what price you can sell or buy. Is
it more economically affordable then to get into a co-op? Is that why you give up some of your rights as an owner?
Well, it's a little bit cheaper, but it can be viewed as more onerous, meaning you have to divulge your entire financial condition and, you know, all your social references and all that. It's a little bit more invasive. If you're willing to go through that process, you probably are getting very good value and probably a better price in that process. Condominiums, you don't have to do anything. You just pay the money and you close and move into the product. And you can actually rent out. In a co-op, it's not so easy to rent the property out.
So, you know, the big news of today is the L train shutdown, and maybe it's not going to be an entire shutdown like it was once thought. What are you saying for all those people that are along that line? Is this good news, or for all the people that have already jumped ship, it's like too late?
I think it's good news. I think it will help values. I think it will stabilize. I think it'll calm everyone down. I mean, it remains to be seen what it's going to evolve into, but the bottom line is I think it will calm everybody down. If you've already moved out, well, you know, you can watch the progress from the sidelines and then move back.
Right. You know, you also mentioned when you speak about progress in Queens, Long Island City, and with the Amazon, you know, prime headquarters coming here, one of the two of them coming here, what would you say for values in the neighborhood? Should you start scoping out properties? Like, is it too soon to decide, or what would you do?
You know, it's never too soon, because, you know, the key to real estate is educating yourself. You know, even if you plan to not do anything for a year, get online, look at property, look at what's out there, look at what's available now, and what is involved in the purchase of those properties, or whether you're going to rent in those properties. What about the neighborhoods? You can do an enormous amount of legwork before you ever get out and start, you know, using your legs to look at property.
So I wanted to ask you just quickly, one quick tip that you would give to a buyer and one quick tip for a seller.
Well, the buyer, I would say, you know, and I think this is true for both buyer and seller, pay attention to your professional. If you're working with a real estate agent, they know what they're doing. They know the comparables. They know the neighborhoods. They know the product. Pay attention to them.
Sentimental value doesn't matter around here.
No. And you know what? Take their advice. You don't have to accept it, but take it and process that into your process of what you're going to offer for a property, or whether you're going to move on a property.
And then for a buyer, what would you say?
A buyer, I would say, you know, be patient. Understand that you are competing for the property, but probably you're also competing against someone else for the property. And the seller is going to take the best buyer for their process.
All right. Thank you so much for being here. We so appreciate it.
Enjoy.
Great information for us all.